Hello and welcome back to the Fireburns Within channel. Time for a anniversary review. Savatage Streets rock opera turns 30 on the 4th of October. Savatage is a band that I didn't know a lot about until I discovered them. I didn't know anything about them until I discovered them around 1993, 94. As I was discovering a lot of different music at this point, and Savatage was one of those bands that I came across and I thought, let me check these guys out. So they were on the album Streets, so that's my first exposure to Savatage, and I played the album quite a lot. I mean, I was intrigued. There wasn't too many bands that played this sort of operatic style, if you will. But when I went backwards into their discography, at that point, I found out they were sort of more of a straight heavy metal band. And this was sort of a departure for them into different realms. So anyway, for the purposes of this anniversary review, I played the album again for the first time in 25 years. So let's see how it went. Track 1 is Streets. A moody and dark piece that sets the brooding feel of the whole dark opera. You get to hear John Oliva's infamous vocals, Chris Oliva. This is before his untimely death, and he was still in the band, of course. His guitar style is very sort of, it's sort of very distinct. You can tell it's him, sort of. Well, you could now. At the time, you couldn't. But Streets is a cool song. It didn't have a great melody or anything that really captured me. But it's just a great opening scene setter. So I quite enjoyed this track. 2 is Jesus Saves. It was good to hear this track after so long. It features a classic Savatage riff to open things up. Actually, one of the first ever Savatage songs I heard. I think I heard this slightly before I heard the full album all those years ago. I don't know where, but I just heard it somewhere, and I thought this was a really cool track, and it drew me into the band. It's good to hear this after 25 years or so since the last time I heard this album, so I really enjoyed this track. Track 3 is Tonight He Grins Again, a brooding, almost balladesque number with a great sort of manic vocal from John Oliva, very dramatic piano-led ballad, more or less, with a lot of great orchestration. This is classic Savatage from this style of metal or rock that they do. This encapsulates all that they stood for, if you like. Track 4 is called Strange Reality, a typical mid-tempo Savatage riff that gives way to a more melodic chorus. The solo from Chris Oliva is really good on this one. I really did quite enjoy Strange Reality. Track 5 is A Little Too Far, a sad sounding piano ballad. Not a fave that I recall from the past, and not much better on this occasion either after so long. But I guess it's all part of the story of our champion in this rock opera. This sounds a little bit Beatles-esque at points, so you can sort of see, I think John Oliva was a pretty big fan of the Beatles. Track 6 is called Youre Alive, a short, upbeat interlude type of song, just under 2 minutes, that reminds me of Meatloaf, come to think of it. And there's quite a fair amount of Meatloafisms, if you will, on this album. Track 7 is Sammy and Tex, the most aggressive, thrashy sounding Savatage riff you'll hear on this album, with a raunchy vocal from John Oliva. The song has great energy, rips hard, unlike most of the album, which is sort of slower and mid-tempo, but it makes quite a change. and sounds pretty cool when surrounded by slower material. Track 8 is St. Patrick's, another slow moving ballad which has a slow build to a fairly interesting and cool, rousing finale. Track 9 is Can You Hear Me Now? A slow building but pretty heavy song with a dark and moody feel as per the whole album. Halfway through it transforms onto a pretty cool heavy pounding riff, and one of the best on the whole album actually, with a superb solo as well. So I really did enjoy Can You Hear Me Now? Track 10 is New York City Don't Mean Nothing. Another quiet and meandering slow start that suddenly kicks in with a heavier tempo. And again, I'm reminded of a heavier version of Meatloaf. Track 11 is Ghost in the Ruins. One of their most beloved songs actually. And this slow burning rocker has a great riff and a superb vocal from John Oliver with a memorable, if slightly repetitive chorus that Savatage fans know and love. The solo is a thing of beauty, and the bass guitar backing the solo is also very cool indeed. It was good to hear Ghost in the Ruins after all this time. A really enjoyable song. Track 12 is If I Go Away, another moody piano-led ballad, of which there are plenty on this album. This one is very heartfelt and sung very well indeed. Track 13 is Agony and Ecstasy. As usual, following a ballad, we need to rock out a little bit, and that we do with a more helter-skelter type of riff. John Oliver's frantic vocals actually seem to fit the song very well, and it's all about the killer riffs and lead embellishments on this track. Track 14 is Heal My Soul. And of course, another sad piano-led ballad to follow the rocker. Do we have to? I guess yes. It's all part of the show, though this one is mercifully fairly short. Doesn't outstay its welcome, but it's another, scene-moving piano-led ballad. Track 15 is called Somewhere in Time. Another shortish, slow-burning semi-ballad that has a decent melody and sets more mood and has an upbeat section towards the end, which is actually pretty cool. And finally, track 16 is the ballad called Believe. Another epic power ballad to close the opera out. A very heartfelt vocal from John Oliver on this track. A final superb Chris Oliver solo to finish things off with. A moody and rousing finale. But it's never been a huge favourite of mine, and it still wasn't on this occasion, but it's a good fitting end to this dark rock opera. So my final thoughts on Streets are that it's a good album, but gets weighed down with a lot of sections which slow the pace down, and I guess it's all part of the story, and it's helps move the story along. But I just feel that they could have trimmed the album. It's quite a long album. It's, I think, just nearly 70 minutes, just under 70 minutes. So they could have trimmed a few sections, have a few sort of more upbeat tunes. A few more rockers like the old days, and I would have been happier. But it was good to listen to this after 25 years. Let's hope it's not another 25 years before it gets another listen. My rating for this album on this occasion, after its 30-year anniversary, is 7.5 out of 10. In the old days, I would have probably rated this at between 8 or 8.5 out of 10 when I originally heard it, because it was fresh to me. I hadn't heard really anything like this, so dramatic, and I hadn't really heard any band creating a story out of their metal album at that point. But obviously there was a lot of bands that did, but I just wasn't listening to them. But Savatage, after this, they would go on to do a lot of similar sounding albums. but I still prefer the classic 80s style Savatage, where they just do straight ahead rockers. I mean, Hall of the Mountain King has always been my favorite. But Streets was my very, very first Savatage album, so it always holds quite a special place in my affections. It's a good, solid album, you know. It reflects what Savatage is all about. But maybe, you know, after 30 years, it's slightly lost its sheen, but it was still good to listen to this album after all this time. So what do you Savatage fans think about Streets as it turns 30? Have you heard it? Even if you haven't heard it, let's see your comments. Okay, hope you enjoyed this anniversary.